Good afternoon, you handsome lot. On the ramp, I've got a Volkswagen Transporter T5 2-litre diesel, which has got a clutch problem, and this vehicle has covered 362,000 miles. Right, let's get to it. Now, I have driven the vehicle, and the performance of the clutch is perfect. It's not slipping, it's driving absolutely perfect. But what the customer's complaining of is every now and again that the pedal is going straight to the floor, but it is coming back up and then it's working fine. So we're going to have a little look and see what we can come up with. I'm almost certain it's the concentric slave in the gearbox. The first thing I'm going to jump around and check is the brake fluid and the colour of it. And to be honest with you, it looks relatively clean. And it is filled right to the brim, which isn't a good indication. Simple reason being, the customer could be topping it up because it's leaking. So what I'm going to do now is just have a little look around all the pipes and make sure that we've got nothing leaking externally from like the brake reservoir. As it goes through the bulkhead, everything seems to be looking nice and dry. Now I've come into the vehicle and can't really see anything because all the plastic covers are there, but everything looks relatively nice and dry in there. I think I'm going to change that clutch master cylinder as well, just as a precaution. As you can see, I have now got this vehicle up in the air, and at the bottom of the bell housing, at the joints between the engine and the bell housing, it does look relatively dry. So we know it's not leaking. I was expecting it to be leaking. But however, we do need to remove the subframe on this to get the gearbox out. Now, I'm all up for a few cosmetic stuff, like side skirts on the van, because they do make it look pretty. But we've got, let me flip the camera around, they're all bolted to the subframe, so I'm hoping that these bolts here don't snap, because we've got to get that off. But everything else is pretty much plain sailing, I think. See, the gearbox is relatively dry. Side skirts are all bolted to the subframe. We run into a problem straight away. The U-bolts come undone relatively easy, but the ones, as you can see, they are solid. And we don't want them snapping just because we haven't got any bolts long enough to fit them. So what we're going to do is jump onto the pickler, power it up, and now just watch how easy this is, right? You see it glowing? Right. It's safe, and most of all, once you've heated it up, you can touch that with your hands. I know you've all seen heat working, and look at that, effortless. Right, well, I'm now in a position where I can remove the subframe. All the bolts are removed, the engine mount bolts are removed. I'm going to leave the steering rack, the anti-roll bar in place. I'm hoping that everything's disconnected. So I'm going to get my little apprentice. Now, well, he's not so little, he's practically bigger than me, but yeah. Between me and Ben, we're going to get this subframe down now so we can get plodding on. That is now one subframe off the vehicle. Fair old unit, fair play, I'm not going to lie. Now, even though the subframe's off, we've made it easier for the gearbox to come out, but we've still got to get the box out. Now, I follow a lad on Instagram called Kyle McIntosh. Now, he's just started as a mobile mechanic, and he's doing these all the time. Now, they're a good job to do. So we're going to plod on, get the starter off, or I need to drop it down, disconnect the battery, get the starter off, and undo a few little bits and bobs at the top. I've plodded on, and I've removed all of the bell housing bolts. It is getting a little bit warm, I'm not going to lie, hence why I've taken my glass off, because they do me head in. That's why I wear contact lenses in most of my videos. But yeah, I'm just in the process now. Got my transmission jack, my apprentice to hold the engine up. Should we get this gearbox out? I think so. Let's put it into a little bit of a time lapse. Now with that gearbox swiftly out of the way, it come out relatively easier and quicker than I thought, to be honest with you. Now, the dual mats has got a little bit of play in it. I wouldn't call it excessive, but it is having a flywheel as well. Now the clutch, if I just flip the camera around and I'll try and show you, these are a self-adjusting clutch. If you have a little look at the springs here, it is almost fully adjusted. That could be causing a lot of the problems. I don't know. But between that concentric slave and that clutch being adjusted all the way, it could be causing the pedal to stick right down. I think between that and that, we are 100% going to cure it. Right, let's get some 9mm now, multi-splined, and get the clutch off. I am shocked to see this. It is the genuine clutch. Can we see it? Genuine VW. 336,000 miles on the original clutch. It was due for replacing anyway, weren't it, to be honest? It's not the worst, and it's certainly not the best. Still got a little bit of meat on it. Should we get this flywheel off? I've gone ahead, I've removed the old flywheel, which is there. We've put the brand new one on. Now these are 60 newton meters and 90 degrees. And how I've locked the flywheel is with a bolt against the ring gear. Don't worry, it's not going to damage them teeth. They are stupidly hard. Now let's get this clutch fitted. Now this is a self-adjusting clutch. I'm going to show you how to use the proper tool. And of course, if you are new to the channel, my preferred clutch and dual mass flywheel kit is Schaeffler LUK. Now I've used these for many, many years and I've never had any problems with them whatsoever. Now, these are a self-adjusting clutch. Do you need this tool to fit it? No, you can do it without it, but if you've got the tool, it's worth doing correctly. Now, if you pull it up unequally, sometimes the adjustment on the clutch can spring off and there can be a little bit of a nightmare resetting them. Now, the idea of this tool is to pull it equally on 3 points. And as you're tightening it up, which I'll show you now, turn the handle and it pulls the pressure plate up to the flywheel equally, and just as it's about touches, like that, that is perfect. And we can go ahead now and put 3 bolts in the other holes and get them torqued up to spec. Unfortunately, I have run into the next day, run out of time, or various things popped in yesterday, so I had to sort of juggle between a lot of things. Flywheel and the clutch is now all torqued up to spec. We've removed the tool, and make sure that you put everything back in the box because you don't want to be losing anything, especially out of these special tools, because they are very expensive. Now I've gone ahead and fitted the brand new concentric slave to the gearbox. Now the old one, when I've removed it, you should never, ever, ever do this on a brand new one. Give it a push. Now it does feel awfully gropey and sticky, and so yeah. All that's fitted now to the gearbox. I'll put a tiny little bit of red rubber grease around the input shaft. I want to get this gearbox slid back onto the engine. Hopefully it goes on as easier as it did coming off. The gearbox is now back in, and it went in very, very easy. Ben, my apprentice, gave me a little bit of a hand just to get it in. Now, I think before we put the subframe on and go any further, I think what we're going to be doing is bleeding the clutch. Now, I have already connected my catch bottle up, and how I'm going to be bleeding it by myself is the launch brake one. Now, this will hold this system at a constant 1.5 bar or 2 bar, whatever you set it to. You don't want to be going any higher than, say, 2 bar of pressure. Now, this kit, right, it does come with an assortment of caps, so it's going to fit everything, generally everything. Right, let's get it bled. With the tool now all powered up, it is pushing the fluid through. Now, when I opened the bleed nipple, that fluid coming out of there was as black as coal, as you can see. That is pretty grim. We're going to wait now until it comes clear, and we're just going to keep closing the nipple like this, just to make sure that all the air is coming out. After you've bled that clutch up, it is always a good idea, like say if you've got to take a subframe off a vehicle, or it's a big job getting the gearbox out. After you've bled it, it's always a good idea to get in the car or van and check your clutch pedal and make sure that you've got no restrictions and it is working as it should be. Now, I'm more than happy with that clutch pedal. It is silky smooth, and I'm going to go now get this vehicle back up in the air and get that subframe back on. Before I put this subframe back on, what I'm going to be doing is get myself a little bit of copper slip. I'm going to go around all the bolts and just put a tiny little bit of copper slip on them, so if they ever need to come off again, they're going to come off relatively easy. Now, I might not be the tech that's going to be able to take it off, but I always think of the next person doing the job if they need to take it off. I'd want them to have an easy job, if that makes sense. Right, with a little bit of magic, that van is all back together. The wheels topped up, gearbox oil, the brake and clutch fluid is topped up correctly. Now, let's jump in the van and see if we've got movement. So if we've done everything correctly, which I'm presuming we have, we've already checked the pedal, so give it a big start up. And to be honest with you, the pedal does feel a lot smoother than what it did when I drove it in here. So we've got to driving forward, put it in for race mode, and it is moving backwards. Now, I'm not going to bore you any longer because this video has drawn out longer than I expected. Oh, be quiet, bloody bing bong. I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to take this vehicle for a little bit of a test drive. Make sure that everything is spot on. Now, I have got another little wet belt to do straight after this. I'm not going to be making a video on it. But I think Friday, I've got a timing chain on a Vauxhall, which I'll do a video. I think it's a little 1.4 Mariva, I don't know. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed that video. And if you have, please click that like and subscribe, and I will probably see you on the next video. Let's get it sent.